せろってうまいこと丸め込んでやるから。
せいぜいしっかりね。バトラ君が事故で亡くなったと聞いたらきっとエンジェも悲しむわ。
手始めにどうする？
朝を待って得になることはないわ。今が最適よ。
やれやれ、一服する暇もなしかよ。
Ah, Christ. Like, what really gets me here is Angie. And how Kiria feels about Angie right over here. Because she says that Angie would definitely be sad about this. But in the end, Kiria doesn't really care about killing Beller. Yeah, but... Oh my god, again. I guess we're going with... Christ. What if what happened in Game 4 truly was because of Kiria and Rudolph? But what I was trying to say over here is that Kiria really doesn't care about killing off Beller and what Angie may feel about her brother being dead and all. That's... I mean, how do you feel about your daughter hearing that a lot of the family has died, including Beller if that were the case? How can you face Angie with that sort of stuff if you are the one who's going to be responsible for killing her own brother? How are you going to be able to face Angie? Like, if that's the case, then Christ, Kiria has it like she's a lot worse than I thought of. Like, okay, we can think that she doesn't really give a fuck about the other adults and the siblings, but... And maybe Beller too, because of the whole Asumu thing, but... Even Angie?
何をする気だよ。この時間に？今から？
Beller yelled wildly into the receiver. When he said, at this time of night, Jordan just got turned to look. According to the clock, it was past midnight. It might be a normal time to be told to brush their teeth and go to bed, but he couldn't understand what this test was all about.
わかったよ。変わるぜ。ジョージの兄貴に。
I was thinking in my spare time a little bit about Kiria and Rudolph's involvement in this entire story, and in the games too. I've had my fair share of theories up until now about the involvement of Shannon and Kanon in the murders of what happened and their motivation for all that has happened. And... you know, initially I was thinking of Kitty and Rudolph, like what happened in the Golden Room. I was thinking initially, okay, maybe they have it in their bone to do this, and this is the first time I'm seeing them in action to this degree that, well, they are pieces. Pieces are not gonna do actions that are against their personality, so if they were given a chance, they would do this. It's just that now we get to see some of that, like this late in the story. But how important is this to the entire story? Because the way this is portrayed, it definitely looks like they are much more important in this than what Eva did in Game 3, or what Rosa did in Game 2. It definitely feels a lot more important now that we're seeing this. Like, if we were to see this kind of scenario in the question arcs, then it wouldn't have looked as important as right now. But the fact that we are being shown this like right now, it definitely feels odd. So it made me think, like, are Rudolph and Kirie like huge factors in what actually happened in the Rokkenjima instant? Even if the games offered like little to no details about that when it comes to their involvement? Because I'm not gonna lie, if Kirie and Rudolph are were to be the ones responsible for the first games, instead of Shannon and Kanon the way I theorized, then that surely would be a twist. But no. I view the actual, quote-unquote, actual incident of Okenjima separate from the mystery of these games that Beatrice showed me. I tried to solve the games, and maybe they will offer hints towards what actually happened on Okenjima, which I honestly thought that Shannon and Kanon, Beatrice, Yasuda would also be behind the actual incident. But if this is so important to show me right now, they kind of gives you the vibe that this is what actually happened. It is quite different from the mystery that Beatrice has shown us. Because I am still confident in my theories. It is quite something.
うちの親父から。もしもし、川ジョージです。
おうジョージ君がこんな時間にすまねえな。寝てたわけじゃねえだろ。みんなでいろいろ盛り上がってたんだろ。
そんなところです。
I mean, at the very least, it doesn't look like this is similar vein to fourth game. They were portraying as if they were captured and they have to do this test, otherwise things are gonna go bad, but it doesn't seem like it right now. They are going for a test, but I'm not sure what kind of test this is gonna be.
マリアちゃんは寝てて。いや、目が覚めたみたいです。それで、何の話ですか？バトラ君はテストとか言ってましたけど。
ん？ああ、親父にも困ったもんさ。さっき唐突に上から降りてきてな。いろいろあった挙句、どの孫が次の当主にふさわしいかなんて話に急になっちまってよ。
Okay, so we're still going for the successor angle here.
次期当主はクラウス・オチさんなのでは。
俺たち4人はみんな次期当主失格だとよ。それで俺たち親をすっ飛ばして孫から次期当主を選ぶなんて話になっちまったわけさ。急な話で俺たちも大いに荒れてる。向こうで兄貴たちはケンケンガクガクやってるぜ。
And I guess like the biggest thing that confuses me in all this is the motivation. Again, if they are going for this angle that, oh my god, Kitty and Rudolph were behind it all along, then all the stuff that we talked about in these games backed up jack shit when it comes to Rudolph and Kitty, and they offer nothing that gives me the vibes that Kitty and Rudolph were the ones responsible for this. I'm not convinced, to be quite honest. I'm not convinced. Not because of how done it and who done it. Like, I don't know, it could be possible. But motivation-wise, the game offered me nothing that would tell me motivation-wise that they were the ones responsible for this.
兄貴の金切り声が受話器越しにも聞こえねえか？
そうですか。おじい様がおっしゃることなら仕方がないですね。それで僕たちはどうすれば？
ジェシカちゃんから順に一人ずつ呼び出しがあるそうだ。ちょっと待ってくれ。もしもし。トップバッターはジョージ君とジェシカちゃんだそうだ。ジェシカちゃんは屋敷の客前、ジョージ君は礼拝堂の前まで行ってほしいそうだ。
いきなりのことで心の準備が全くありませんが、テストって何ですか？
親父のやつめ、おかしなクイズみたいなものを作ったみたいだ。当主の心構えとは何ぞやみたい。
Of course, George felt as though something was right. However, Kinzo was famous for doing radical things on a whim. Even this strange test seemed plausible once you heard that it was a sudden idea of Kinzo's. But even in that case, if he wanted to test them one by one, why wouldn't he call them out one by one? Like an interview, they should just have to wait in the reception room and go when they were called. Why would two people be called to different places at the same time? The plan didn't seem to make sense, which made George feel as though he was missing something. Unless there's also this angle that I've also taken into consideration. Maybe Ben Costello is fucking with us. Maybe, especially with this test right over here, because we're going back to Game 4. Maybe Ben Costello is trying to make us think yet again, well, not again, but Ben Costello is trying to make us think that Rudolph and Kiri are the ones responsible for the murders, or at the very least, what happened in Game 4, and maybe even try to think us that that is what actually happened on Rokkenjima, like outside the games. Like she's trying to do this to us, to confuse us, and it kind of makes me think maybe that would be the reason why Angie herself was also put in the theater to look at this. Which, yeah, could be. It is something.
しかし、なんだってジョージ君は礼拝堂前なんだろうな。じい様が特に要望してる。よくはわからねえが、二人きりで話したいことがあるそうだ。
おじい様が僕に？
何の話だろうな。ジョージ君は孫の中で一番優秀だからな。何か特に話したいことでもあるんじゃねえか。ま、とにかくそういうわけだ。すぐに移動してくれ。礼拝堂の方には俺も行くことになってる。さっさと済ませようぜ。お互い風邪をひいちまうわ。
そうですか。わかりました。では僕は礼拝堂の前へ。ジェシカちゃんは客前へ。はい。それでは後ほど。
Just what sort of test? What sort of private conversation could Kinzo want to have at this time of night? However, it was a well-known fact that Kinzo didn't have very long to live. It was conceivable that he had some last words for each of his individual descendants. Inside George's mind, the faint feeling that something was wrong was replaced by curiosity, and a desire to meet Kinzo directly and hear the details. George set down the receiver and quickly explained to the others.
聞いたの通りだよ。おじい様が僕たち全員に何かのテストをしたいと言ってる。
テスト？何年かぶりに書斎から出てきたと思ったら、こんな時間にテストごっこかよ。たくじいさまね、何を考えてやがんだ。
それに関しては僕たちの親も同感のようだよ。かなり揉めてるみたいだ。
揉めたところでじい様には勝てないんだろうけどな。
そういうことだね。仕方がない。当主様の命令だからね。従おう。まず最初は僕とジェシカちゃんが呼ばれてる。僕は礼拝堂へ。ジェシカちゃんはお屋敷の客前だそうだ。
俺とマリアは
追って連絡があると思うよ。ここで待ってて。
真夜中のテスト。なんだろう。どんなテストだろう。
Wait, what? What was that bounce there? Like, have I ever seen sprites bounce up until this point? Huh. Well, that was cute.
クイズ？パズル？マリア、狼と羊のパズルなら得意。
Maria, who was now fully awake, seemed to be very excited about this unexpected midnight test.
じゃあ俺たちは留守番してるぜ。
じゃあ行ってくれよ。もう待ってるみたいだし。
次期当主は孫の誰かにね。 私には好都合だぜ。誰かに押し付けるチャンス。
マリア次期当主になる。なりたいなりたい。
マリアが次期当主ってのも悪くねえぜ。じゃあね、また後で。
Rudolph put down the receiver and stood up.
さて、俺は礼拝堂前か。冷えそうだな。合田さん、戻ってきたら熱いコーヒーの用意を頼むぜ。
Next to Rudolph, Goda was lying face up. His face was covered by a crossword puzzle book. However, its pages were stained with blood, and there was no need to move the book to imagine how he had met his pitiful end.
どう？いい脚本だったでしょ？
I guess I had some high hopes that maybe in this game Goda is gonna have his spotlight, but no, apparently not. We only have one more chance, folks. We only have one more chance for us to get the sweet spotlight that Goda deserves in the 8th episode. Let's pray to our Lord and Savior Bertolucci.
ああ、親父に感謝だぜ。親父の気まぐれってことにしときゃ誰も疑いやしね
え。じゃあ手分けしていきましょう。私はジェシカちゃんを、あなたはジョージ君を。
おう、手際よく済ませてのんびりコーヒーでもすすろうぜ。
大丈夫よね。今頃になって両親の呵責とかないわよね。
Kirie smiled coldly. It probably would have been safer to call them out one by one and finish them off together. However, Kirie had chosen to have her husband work separately. She wanted to measure Rudolph's resolve. If she was the only one who got her hands dirty, and Rudolph watched, his heart would not be as dedicated to this venture. By having him dirty his own hands, she could make him truly determined to see this thing through. Katie understood this sort of mind game better than anyone else. And this song too, it can get quite intense. Rudolph fixedly reverted his gaze from the cold glint in her eyes, and then he had just shrugged and answered her question.
当たり前だろ。10億の金が手に入るかどうかの瀬戸際にいるんだ。俺も男だぜ。人生に二度とないチャンスを棒に振るつもりはねえさ。
それでこそルドルフさんよ。私はここ一番のチャンスを逃さない人が好き。そんなあなただから私は好きになったのよ。
おう、嬉しいぜ。
ルドルフさん、
なんだよ。
ずっといてね。
え？なんだって？
ずっと私の好きなルドルフさんのままでいてね。
当然だろ。俺がいつお前を失望させたよ。お前はそんな心配より祝杯をあげる時のシャンパンの銘柄でも迷ってろってんだ。
そうするわ。いい？バトラ君が大事なら礼拝堂前でジョージ君をやっちゃダメよ。死体を見つけられたら面倒でしょ。
ああ、分かってる。その辺にうまく誘い出すさ。雨の屋外でどうとでもなるさ。
西部劇の悪役じゃないんだからね。メイドの土産とか最後に言い残すことはとか、そんなことやっちゃダメよ。
He lifted up her gun again and pulled on the lever to eject the casing from the bullet she had killed Goda with.
あなた、あなた。
What? Eva? Eva was holding Hideyoshi's body and crying. She hadn't been shot at all. The bullet had grazed the side of her head and missed. What? She hadn't been playing dead. She really thought that she had been shot. When Kirie's gun spat fire, Eva felt something swift and fierce scrape past her head. Before feeling lightheaded and fainting. And then later on, she woke up in the now silent room of the gold. So you're telling me that Kirie missed? And now Eva is alive, and the only survivor in this. Huh. So, I guess here we're going with the idea, with the possibility that once again, Eva is gonna be the only one who's gonna survive all this. That she's gonna be the only one who's gonna come back home with, like, to Angie. Huh. Maybe. And the corpse of her beloved husband lay beside her, along with the corpse of Kraus, Nazi, and Rosa. It was a room of death and piled up bodies. When she had cried all she could over Hideyoshi's body, she realized that she still had something she needed to do.
ジョージが危ないわ。ジョージ、ジョージ。
And they're trying to use the bomb to blow up everything, to bury this whole island with an explosion accident. Eva checked the clock, and was proven right. As expected, the switch was set to the right, which meant that it was active. Okay, well, turn it off, and I don't know, try and make sure that when you leave this room, the door will never be able to be opened somehow. I mean, you can use the mechanism on, on the chapel. Like, try to block it in a way that Kirie and Rudolph will never be able to go back here to reactivate it. If I moved to flip it to the left, and stopped. That's right. As long as the switch points to the right, anything that happens on this island will disappear into a night of illusion. Yes, and this is an illusion. No matter what happens tonight, everything will become muddled and hidden away.
あいつらはきっと残りのみんなを殺すわ。そうに違いない、絶対に。
When she looked at the table with a box of bullets, she saw signs that they had grabbed several large handfuls of bullets from the box. It clearly showed that they planned to use that many bullets. I have to fight, if only to protect just the life of my precious son. Alright, well, go! Go! You don't have much time. The gun that I dropped when I was shot is stuck with the lever handle open. No matter how hard I pull, it won't open any further, and it won't close again. A bullet must have gone jammed and broken it. And it's just as Kirie said. Loading a bullet is tough if you aren't used to it.
お願い、あなた、力を貸して。ジョージを守るために力を貸して。
In Hiroshi's hand was Kraus' gun, which he had been trying to pick up. Eva took it, prayed to her husband one more time, and tugged on the lever handle. With a light metallic sound, the golden casing spun through the air and bounced off the ground. But she timidly tried to push the lever back, and this time it returned to its original place without any resistance. There was another metallic clang. It was the sound of a new bullet being loaded.
そんなことだろうと思ったわ。私にとって 一番胸くその悪いゲームを見せて嘲笑ってやろうって魂胆ね。
In the game so far, various people have been suspected of being the culprit or an accomplice. The only difference now was that Rudolph and Chiru were those suspects. And I guess going back to Angie being here specifically in the theater, and maybe Ben Costello showing her this, maybe this is a way of showing Angie that, oh my god, Eva was not the actual murder behind everything. Since, you know, after the Rokkenjima incident, Angie lived with Eva for 12 years, and always resenting Eva, that she was the one responsible for everything. And now we're being shown this, and Angie's gonna be all, what? You're telling me that her parents were the ones who did this, and not Eva? And that Angie resented Eva for what she thought was the case. But apparently Eva was innocent all along, when in actuality she should have been pissed at her parents. That could be what Baron Costello is trying to show her right here. However, that was the most aggravating development possible for Angie. Even Leon was full of painful thoughts. And the question is, however, why Leon is being shown this. I mean, of course, Leon, a.k.a. Yasuda, since I'm connecting like them, you know, Yasuda, and therefore Leon is very, very integral to the story that we're being told right over here. So it isn't far-fetched to think that she would watch this as well, because, well, she basically knows everything. Yasuda, that is. But other than that... They have been lucky enough to solve the epitaph, which was the only miracle that could lead to a game with no victims. How ironic that they were unable to prevent the tragedy. Does this mean that we aren't allowed to have a future where we all happily return from this island alive, even if the epitaph is miraculously solved before the crime occurs? And there will be absolutely no miracles. I recall those words, which I had heard in one of the fragments Ben Costello had shown me.
ベルンカステルさん、あなたは私にこの世界の素晴らしさを教えてくれた。そんなあなたがエンジェを傷つけるためだけにこんな物語を紡ぐとは信じたくない。ゲームマスターがあなたであることはもう私にも分かっているんです。教えてください。どうしてあなたはこんなゲームを私たちに見せるんです？
Of course, no one answered Leon's mother question. I mean, yeah, I guess we can see that, like, we've been told Claire's story and how it all ended, ending all hopeful, and now we're going the despair route, like rising despair, that whole mumble jumble kind of thing. I know what it's all about. The game created to mock Angie continued emotionlessly, with more terrible twists that didn't betray anyone's expectations anymore.
好きに最悪のゲームを繰り広げればいい。猫箱の中の無限の可能性の中の一つだと言いたいんでしょ。好きになさいよ、好きに。私はこんなことではくじけない。
Alright, Angie.
1986年10月5日の真実をいつか必ず暴いてやるんだから。
After meeting Kitty in the parlor, Jessica was told that the test would be held in the dining hall, and she followed Kitty there. Alright. The chaos continues. Let me just steal my heart here a little bit for what's to follow.
誰もいねえぜ、キリエおばさん。
すぐに来るわよ。 そこに座ってて。
Jessica sat in that chair, looking nervous and agitated. Kirie was by far the calmer of the two. Kirie closed the door behind her, revealing the gun that rested behind it. Jessica was facing the other way, so she saw nothing.
キリエおばさんは聞いているんですか？どんなテストか。
ええ、すぐに終わるわよ。
そうだといいんですけどね。
And she complained. Jessica turned her head around, and the tip of her nose bumped into cold metal. Ugh.
ルドルフおじさん、何をするんですか？
後ろから撃つのはどうにも性に合わね
あ、危ないじゃないですか。一体何の真似です？
銃口を向けて引き金を引くってのは他に何の真似があるってんだ。
Rudolph reloaded rapidly and pulled the trigger again without any sign of hesitation. Aw, man. I was hoping that Eva might come in at the last second to stop Rudolph, maybe. Unless, maybe George dodged a bullet or Rudolph missed. Let's see. No, he's still kicking. The sound of gunfire thundered through the rain. George grabbed at his side and fell to his knees.
おかしいな。やっぱり狙いより下にずれるぜ。この銃、癖がひでえな。誰か助けて。ルドルフおじさんが。
George started stumbling away, still clutching at his side. His voice as he called for help was weak and thin. Behind him, Rudolph looked perfectly calm as he fiddled with his gun and inspected the sights. A gouging pain in George's side tormented him. It was so painful that he could barely stand and walk. He leaned against the trunk of a tree. After he crouched down, trying to cover his wounds, he was no longer able to stand back up. George didn't have a clue what was going on. However, he thought it strange the whole time. Of course, it was strange that he should be called out to a place like this at a time like this. And yet, how could he have guessed that something was wrong? After all, his own uncle had told him that his grandfather was calling for him from the family conference. How could he have gotten suspicious?
悪いな、ジョージ君。痛えか？これなら背後から脳天をズドンとやった方が慈悲があったよ。何もわからねえうちにズドンじゃあまりに無慈悲かと思ったんだが、どうやら逆だったらしい。
どうしてルドルフおじさん、あんなに優しかったおじさんがどうして？
このことは忘れろ。明日の夜には全てなかったことになってるから。
With a quick use of the lever handle, he loaded another bullet. The casing of the bullet that had pierced George's side fell heartlessly in front of him.
突然の不幸な事故でみんな死んじまうのさ。その瞬間まで俺たち親族は仲良くやってたのさ。そうなるんだ。だからこいつは気にするな。忘れる。
Of course, George didn't have a clue what Rudolph was talking about. All he knew was that Rudolph wanted to kill him, and that he showed no trace of hesitation. The image George had of Rudolph as the ideal, cool, joke-loving adult didn't match up with Rudolph standing in front of him, holding a gun. No, maybe it didn't fit because it fit too well. Even though there was a gun in his hands, Rudolph had a huge smile on his face, as though he was about to tell some hilarious joke. Why would that kind, funny Uncle Rudolph do this? Many feeling magically sad, and tears flowed from his eyes.
おじさん、あなたのこと憧れてたのに。
いつも言ってたろ、ジョージ君。俺みたいな大人になっちゃダメだぞって。つまりはそういうことさ。来世では悪党を見抜く目を最初に養う。ジョージ君ならできるさ。何しろ勤勉なんだ。
Biting down the pain in his side, and summoning the last of his strength, George threw his whole body into a roundhouse kick. At the same time, fire spat from Rudolph's gun. The bullet pierced George's chest. George twisted and fell as blood gushed from the wound. He moaned wordlessly, clenching blood-stained teeth. The frigid gun was pressed harshly against his temple.
来世でも立派な男になれよ。俺みたいな金に目がくらむ外道にはなる。
ルドルフおじさんがお金で人を殺すなんて信じられない。
純真殺せるんだぜ、金で人を。
The ruthless trigger forestalled any further questions. George's hands, which had been covering his wound, dropped lifelessly. After Rudolph saw the last glimmer of life leave him, he let out a deeply exhausted sigh he'd been holding back for some time. Wolf looked up into the dark, rainy sky, the raindrops hitting him full in the face, and laughed with an indescribable expression, his tongue hanging out.
もっと両親が痛むと思ってたぜ。終わってみりゃ案外こんなもんだ。
Rudolph started laughing. This was probably just the thing Kitty had hoped for. He had taken some effort to kill George. Though he had been merciless, the last traces of conscience in Rudolph's heart had probably slowed him down. However, now he had killed someone with his own hands, a turning point that few people ever reach. Rudolph had finally awakened. No, he finally understood.
バカから金を絞り取るのと全く同じことさ。いつもの石取りゲームじゃねえか。目の前に金の山があったら早いもん勝ち。遅いやつは蹴落とされて地獄行きってわけさ。
I've scammed dozens of unfortunate saps and buried them in debt. Several of them probably ended up bankrupt, and some of those might have hanged themselves. And I always laughed, saying that wasn't my problem. And that's all there is to it. The only difference now is that, for the first time, I've dealt the final blow with my own hands.
ありがとうよ、キリエ。いつもお前は俺の心の甘えを断ち切ってくれるよ。
はぁ。Rudolph's evil laugh rang out. The laugh was so purely evil, it was almost refreshing. Evil that still has a conscience and thinks itself good is far more repulsive to behold. If a man commits himself to an evil act, how much more pleasant and grateful it is when he is honest about his intentions. In that sense, Rudolph's evil smile and laugh truly were pleasant and graceful. And so, Surely the brutal bloody stage of the dynamo was also refreshing. A clang, a thud, a crack, a squish. A strange mixture of these sounds kept repeating over and over at the same tempo. Each time, red splash landed on a nearby dangling table clock.
ジェシカちゃん、聞こえてる？
Kitty asked this with a sort of smile any aunt might make to her niece. However, Jessica didn't answer. There was nothing particularly surprising about this. After all, by now, her nose was broken, her eyes had been smashed, her teeth had been knocked out, and only her nose, but her entire face was now hardly recognizable as a face, just a lump of bloody flesh. Jesus! Kitty finally stopped her task of repeatedly smashing Jessica's face with the stock of her gun. I mean, you know, a gunshot to the head would suffice. Now you're just stabbing an already dead person repeatedly, just for fun. Still sitting on top of Jessica, Kitty had tossed her gun to the side, pulled the compact out of her pocket, and looked at her own face in the mirror. And finally, she realized that her face was covered by speckles of fresh blood.
ひどいありさまだわ。服も台無しじゃない。
I mean, you know what? Fine. You can be mad at Asumo. You can be mad at Beller for how much he reminds of Asumo. You can shoot the adults and take all the money because you need a lot of money right now. Hell, maybe you need to kill like all the kids so that there will be no one to get in your way. But this is just... I mean, this is basically top of the food chain when it comes to villainy. Just crushing a person's skull and laughing and feeling like absolutely nothing of it. I surely did not expect this. Christ. With a muffled laugh, Kitty shakily rose to her feet. And Jessica wasn't moving anymore. She had been convulsing a bit until a second ago, but now she was as still as stone. I mean, you know, I have to think a little bit back. Pieces, they don't do actions that are gonna go against their personality. Which would tell me, yet again, that this is something that she would do. But honestly, I'm not sure when it comes to the rules anymore. When it comes to Ben Costello's game.
女の顔を殴ることに関しちゃおばさん慣れてるの。ごめんね。抵抗しないでくれたら綺麗な死に顔にしてあげられたのにね。
If this was Beatrice's game, I mean, you know, if this was one of Beatrice's games, like one of the good old games from a long time ago, then this would actually be a lot worse in my mind. That if we are to go with the idea that pieces are only gonna do actions in accordance with their personality. If this was one of the earlier games, battles, when she was at her full power, then that actually would have been a lot worse. the fact that it's Ben Castell who is doing this with, who knows, maybe her own rules about this, then I don't know, I guess it kind of gives me a little bit of hope when it comes to that, but only time will tell. We're definitely gonna need to confront Ben Castell when it comes to this. However, instead of taking the blood off, just smeared it around, and did nothing to remove the stench of blood and death that covered her. When she got tired of smearing blood over the tablecloth, Kirie walked over to the extension telephone in the corner of the room. Then she dialed the number for the cousin's room in the guest house.
もしもし、私。今度はバトラ君の番よ。今度はバトラ君が礼拝堂前に行ってちょうだい。ええ、そう。マリアちゃんの指示は受けてないの？そこで待っててよ。ええ、しっかりね。バトラ君が次期当主に選ばれるよう応援してるわ。
I mean, you know, it does make me think back on Game 4 as well. If we are to go with this idea that maybe Rudolph and Kirie were behind Game 4 at the very least. Jessica called Bella in her own room, and then she got shot. And unless I'm being wrong about what I'm remembering, who was the one who called next? It was Kirie. Kirie was the one who called Bella, like, after Jessica. In similar fashion to what we're being shown here. When she sat down to receive her, there was a small knock, and Rudolph came back into the room.
Oh, ひでえありさまだな。
Except the big difference would be that in the fourth game, it was Beatrice who called Bella to test him out, not Kirie. Kirie was calling Bella because of, you know, being chased by the enemy.
ジェシカちゃん、思ったより反応のいい子だね。まさかあそこで払いのけられるとは思わなかった
この死にざまじゃむしろお気の毒としか言えんな。夏日姉さんにのいい女が台無しだぞ。
そっちは手こずらなかった？
問題なしだ。ちょろいもんさ。
And then Kirie heard Rudolph's instant response. She favored him with an evil smile. Yes, the man she loved was the sort who could do whatever he put his mind to, without letting cheap emotions get in the way. I mean, not to mention that the word evil is being thrown like left and right, because there is just no subtlety when it comes to what is going on over here. With an evil smile, smashing her heads just like that, like mercifully. Just smashing Jessica's head like mercilessly, just... Oh.
愛してるわ、ルドルフさん。そうでなくっちゃ。
これで日当が10億出るならちょろい仕事じゃねえか。親父がよく言ってたぜ。男は人生で一度人を殺す覚悟を持って臨む日が訪れるってね。
常に相手を殺してでも生き残る覚悟を持ってよね。お父様の言葉の中で一番好きな言葉よ。
お次はどうする？
次は大仕事よ。バトラ君の説得。
おっと、そう、こいつは面倒だ。引き金引かずに終わりたいもんだ。
私は気に入ってるのよ。エンジェとの3人家族の生活。でもどうしてもそれにバトラ君を加えたいというなら頑張ってね。
おう、グーの音も言わせねえつもりだ。大丈夫。うまく騙すシナリオも用意してるさ。
頑張ってね。私もできることなら エンジェの大好きなお兄ちゃんが爆発事故に巻き込まれないことを願ってる
わ。分かってるさ。じゃあ俺は礼拝堂に戻るぜ。
ルドルフさん、
なんだ。
バトラ君が納得しなかったら
分かってる。その時はズドンだ。
バトラ君は私との再婚に抗議して家を飛び出すくらいに行動力のある子よ。中途半端な丸め込み方で後日にいろいろと騒がれたら彼は私たちの命取りになるのよ。
分かって。俺を信じろ。
もしバトラ君が不信感を持ってると私が判断したなら、その時は私の手で殺すわよ。私の子供じゃないんだ。
ああ、分かってる。だからキリエ、一つだけ約束してくれ。
何？
もしバトラーをうまく丸め込めて島から3人で出られたら。
出られた？
バトラのことを二度と私の子供じゃないみたいなことを言うな。お前は母なんだから頼む。
いいわ、約束してあげる。
Kirie shrugged and answered as she loaded bullets.
あなたは礼拝堂へ。私はバトラ君が出て行った頃を見計らってゲストハウスの連中をすべて片付けるわ。
大丈夫か、一人で。
そっちこそ。
I can imagine a little bit. When Rudolph made Kirie promise that surely must have hit Kirie quite hard. So it kind of makes me think of the worst case scenario. That now Kirie is gonna end up killing not only just Beller, but also Rudolph. Simple as that. God knows, it could be possible. It can happen. And when Kirie is the last one to survive after killing Beller and Rudolph, bam, she gets shot by Eva, and the rest is history. Especially when it comes to game 3, that is. I guess at that point, there will be no choice but for Eva to just turn on the bomb yet again and just run away to Koadorian, because if she is the only one to leave the island with the bodies still intact right here, that would truly end up in prison time. But with the explosion, well, that will be the only option left for Eva at that point, if that were to happen. So, let's see. He had been called to the area in front of the chapel, just like George had been. Not even half an hour had passed since the time George and Jessica had been called out. Apparently, this test didn't last too long.
クソじじめ。昼飯にさえ姿を出さなかったくせに、こんな時間にのこのこ現れてテストだとは恐れ入るぜ。